The fluorescent lights hummed above Marcus Webb's head as he wiped his hands on a rag that had seen better days. The garage smelled like it always did: motor oil, brake fluid, and the faint metallic tang of rust. His back ached from spending the last 3 hours under a Ford F-150 with a transmission that had given up somewhere around its second 100,000 miles. The owner couldn't afford a replacement, so Marcus had done what he always did: found a way to make the broken parts work a little longer. The clock on the wall read 6:15. He was already late. His phone buzzed for the third time in 20 minutes. Sophie. He didn't need to look at the screen to know. His daughter had a sixth sense for when he was running behind, and she wielded guilt with the precision of a surgeon. Marcus peeled off his work gloves and thumbed the screen. Ba noi saujovema. He closed his eyes. She'd switched to Vietnamese, which meant she was either really worried or really annoyed. Probably both. I know, baby girl. I'm cleaning up right now. Bà hóa đây nhé. Hùa thật chứ không phải hùa kiểu bà thường nói. Marcus felt the familiar weight settle in his chest. The kind of promise she was asking for, the real kind, not the hopeful kind he usually gave, was harder to make when you'd already broken too many of them. I promise for real this time. Okay, I made spaghetti. It's getting cold. The call ended before he could respond. 9 years old and already an expert at making him feel like the worst father in Richmond. He set the phone down on the workbench and stared at the framed photograph next to his toolbox. Two men in desert camouflage, arms slung over each other's shoulders, grinning like they owned the world. Marcus looked younger in the picture, his face not yet carved by the weight of things he couldn't fix. Lieutenant David Brooks stood beside him, blue eyes squinting against the Afghan sun, that easy smile that made everyone trust him, the smile he'd died with. Marcus blinked and the memory came anyway, uninvited and sharp. The sound first, a crack that split the air, then the deep bass rumble that followed. The Humvee lifting off the ground like a toy, flames blooming orange and black against the pale desert sky. Brooks' voice cutting through the radio static, shouting his name. Then nothing. Just smoke and silence, and the terrible understanding that he'd been right about the IED, and no one had listened. His hand trembled as he set the frame back down. 6 years and it still felt like yesterday. The garage door rattled as someone knocked. Marcus turned, expecting Mrs. Chen from down the street coming to ask about her Civic again. Instead, a younger guy stood there in a wrinkled polo shirt, phone pressed to his ear, looking annoyed. Yeah, I'm here now. No, the place looks closed. I don't know, some auto shop in... The guy lowered the phone. You open? Marcus glanced at the clock again. 6:20. Sophie's spaghetti would be ice cold by now. Not really, I was just heading out. The guy's face fell. Come on, man. My alternator's dead and I've got a flight at 9. AAA said it'd be 2 hours minimum. Marcus looked past him at the Honda Accord sitting in the lot, hazard lights blinking weakly. The desperation in the guy's voice was real enough, but so was the promise he'd just made to Sophie, and he'd already used up most of his credibility with her this month. There's a shop 3 miles up on Broad Street. They do emergency work. I called them. They're booked solid. The guy stepped closer and Marcus could see the sweat on his forehead despite the cool October evening. Look, I'll pay cash. Double your normal rate. I just need to get to the airport. The weight of responsibility pressed down on Marcus's shoulders. It always did. Every stranded driver was someone who needed help, and walking away felt like a betrayal of something fundamental. But Sophie needed him too, and she'd been patient for too long. I'm sorry, I can't help you tonight. The guy's expression shifted from desperate to angry. Seriously? What kind of mechanic turns down easy money? The kind who promised his daughter he'd be home for dinner. Marcus grabbed his jacket from the hook by the door and killed the overhead lights. The guy was still standing there when Marcus locked up, muttering into his phone about small-town service and incompetence. Marcus let it roll off. He'd learned a long time ago that you couldn't save everyone, and trying would only get you killed. or get someone else killed while you stood there watching. The drive home took 15 minutes through streets that emptied out after the commuter rush. Marcus lived in a neighborhood that real estate agents called up and coming, and everyone else called cheap. His duplex sat at the end of a block lined with similar structures, all of them wearing the same tired expression of deferred maintenance. Sophie was waiting on the porch when he pulled up, her small frame silhouetted against the yellow glow of the porch light. "You're 45 minutes late." "I know. I'm sorry." She didn't move as he climbed the steps. Her arms were crossed and her face held that serious expression she got when she was trying to be grown up about something that hurt. "The spaghetti's cold now. I put it in the fridge. We can heat it up." "It's not the same." She was right. It never was. Marcus reached out to touch her shoulder, but she turned and walked inside before he could. He followed her into the small living room where textbooks lay scattered across the coffee table. Fourth-grade homework. Math problems she'd probably finished hours ago while waiting for him to keep his word. "Did Mrs. Tran check on you?" "Yeah. She left at 6 when you texted you were coming home." Sophie picked up her backpack without looking at him. "I'm going to my room." "Sophie, I really am sorry. A customer came right as I was leaving." "You always have a customer. Or a car that needs one more thing. Or an emergency." She finally met his eyes, and the disappointment there cut deeper than any anger could. "You promise things and then you break them. I'm not stupid, Ba. I know what that means." The words landed like a fist to his sternum. She climbed the stairs before he could find a response, and her bedroom door closed with a gentle click that somehow felt worse than if she'd slammed it. Marcus stood in the empty living room, still wearing his grease-stained work clothes, and wondered when exactly he'd become the kind of father he'd promised himself he'd never be. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. "Changed my mind about tonight, heading to Dulles instead, found another shop. You should reconsider your customer service." Marcus deleted it and pulled up his messages to Sophie. The cursor blinked at him, demanding words he didn't have. Finally, he typed, "Tomorrow I'm taking the whole day off. We'll do whatever you want, I promise, the real kind." He hit send before he could second-guess himself, then climbed the stairs and knocked softly on her door. "I mean it this time, baby girl. Tomorrow's all yours." No response. He pressed his palm against the wood for a moment, then retreated to his own room. The photograph of him and Brooks sat on the nightstand, another copy of the same image he kept at the shop. Marcus picked it up and studied Brooks's face, trying to remember the exact sound of his voice, the way he'd laugh at terrible jokes, the calm certainty he'd brought to every impossible situation. "I'm trying, Dave," he whispered to the silent room. "I'm really trying." But trying hadn't saved Brooks, and it wasn't enough for Sophie either. He set the photo down and closed his eyes, but sleep was a long time coming. The next morning arrived cold and clear, October air sharp enough to sting. Marcus kept his promise. He didn't check his phone when it buzzed with service requests. He didn't make excuses when Mrs. Chen called about her Civic. He took Sophie to the Science Museum, then to her favorite Vietnamese restaurant for pho, then to the bookstore where she spent 45 minutes selecting 3 novels about dragons and magic. They drove home as the sun painted the sky orange and pink, and for the first time in months, she fell asleep smiling in the passenger seat. Marcus carried her inside, tucked her into bed, and finally allowed himself to believe he might be getting this father thing right after all. His phone rang at 7:15. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Webb's Auto Repair." Silence on the other end, then a woman's voice, clipped and professional. "Is this Marcus Webb?" "Yeah. Who's this?" "I'm calling about an urgent matter. Are you available for a roadside repair tonight? I'm willing to pay premium rates." Marcus glanced towards Sophie's room. "Ma'am, I appreciate the call, but I'm off duty. There are several 24-hour services in the area. I don't want a service. I want someone discreet, someone who knows their way around high-end vehicles. A pause. I was told you used to work on military transports, specialized equipment. The hairs on the back of Marcus's neck stood up. Nobody knew about his military background unless they'd gone looking for it. He'd been careful to keep that part of his life buried under 6 years of ordinary mechanic work. Who told you that? A mutual acquaintance. Look, I'm stranded on Route 81 about 20 miles outside Richmond. Flat tire. I need someone who can get here quickly and keep quiet about it. Ma'am, a flat tire isn't exactly a specialized job. Just get here. I'll make it worth your time. The call ended before he could refuse. Marcus stared at his phone, every instinct screaming that this was a bad idea. Strange calls about military background, demands for discretion. Premium pay for a simple tire change, none of it added up to anything good. He should delete the call log and forget it happened. Instead, he found himself checking on Sophie one more time, still sleeping. He scribbled a note and left it on the kitchen table. Emergency call. Back soon. Love you. Ba. The lie tasted bitter, but he told himself it was close enough to the truth. Route 81 stretched dark and empty under a sky threatening rain. Marcus's Chevy Silverado ate up the miles while questions churned through his mind. Why had the woman insisted on him specifically? How did she know about his military service? And why did everything about this feel like a setup? He almost turned around 3 times the 4th time he saw the car. A Mercedes-Benz GLS, matte black and expensive, sat on the shoulder with its hazard lights blinking weakly against the gathering dark. A woman stood beside it, phone pressed to her ear, wearing a charcoal coat that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. She looked up as he pulled over, her expression flickering between relief and irritation. Marcus grabbed his toolbox and climbed out. Rain had started to fall, light but steady, turning the asphalt slick and reflective. You the one who called? The woman ended her call without answering whoever was on the other end. You're Marcus Webb? That's what my license says. Can you change a tire, or are you planning to stand there asking questions? Her tone carried the sharp edge of someone used to being obeyed without question. Marcus had dealt with officers like that in the military, people who confused rank with competence. He swallowed his first response and walked to the rear of the Mercedes without a word. The tire was shredded, rubber peeled back from the rim in ways that made him pause. He knelt in the rain, running his fingers along the tear, too clean, too uniform. Tires didn't fail like this from road debris. How fast were you going when this happened? Does it matter? Depends on whether you want an honest assessment or just a replacement. The woman stepped closer, and Marcus could feel her studying him. I was doing 70. The tire blew without warning. Marcus pulled his flashlight from his belt and examined the sidewall more carefully. The damage pattern was all wrong. He'd seen enough combat zone sabotage to recognize the work of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. You got enemies, ma'am? Excuse me? He pointed the beam at the cut hidden beneath the shredded rubber. This wasn't a blowout. Someone weakened your tire, cut it just deep enough that it would fail at highway speed. The woman went very still. That's impossible. No, ma'am. That's professional. Marcus shifted the light toward the wheel well, checking the brake assembly out of habit. The line looked clean at first glance, but something nagged at him. He moved closer, using his pocket knife to scrape away a thin layer of road grime. A bead of hydraulic fluid glistened in the flashlight beam. Don't drive this car. What? He stood, water dripping from his jacket. Your brake line's been cut, not all the way through, just enough to weaken it. Same principle as the tire. Whoever did this wanted both to fail at the same time. The color drained from her face. You're saying someone tried to kill me? I'm saying someone set a trap, a good one. Marcus pulled out his phone. You need to call the police. The sound of engines cut him off. Heavy, multiple, approaching fast. Marcus turned as 3 black Cadillac Escalades emerged from the rain, headlights blazing. They boxed in the Mercedes from both directions, and doors flew open before the vehicles had fully stopped. 6 men in dark suits stepped out, moving with the coordinated precision of trained security. Each one had a hand near their waist where Marcus knew they'd be carrying. The lead man, white, mid-40s with the kind of weathered face that came from too many years of expecting the worst, fixed his eyes on Marcus and advanced. "Step away from the vehicle, hands where I can see them, now!" Marcus raised his hands slowly, moving back from the Mercedes. The rain fell harder now, soaking through his work clothes, but he kept his movements deliberate and unthreatening. These weren't cops. Private security, probably high-end given the hardware and the coordination. The kind of people who didn't ask questions before they put you on the ground. The woman's voice cut through the rain. "Ryan, he was helping me." "Ms. Sterling, please step back. We'll handle this." So she had a name, Sterling. The way the security chief said it carried weight, the kind that came with money and influence. Marcus filed that away and kept his hands high. Ryan approached, his right hand resting on what Marcus could now see was a Glock 19 in a hip holster. "Name?" "Marcus Webb." "What are you doing here?" "Changing a tire, or I was until you showed up." "How did you know Ms. Sterling was here?" "She called me, asked for roadside help." Ryan's eyes narrowed. "She called you specifically?" "That's what happened. And you just happened to be available? At night? In the middle of nowhere?" Marcus met his gaze without flinching. "I'm a mechanic. People call when they need help. I show up." One of the other security guards crouched by the tire, examining it with a flashlight. "Sir, there's definitely damage here. Looks deliberate." Ryan moved past Marcus to see for himself, keeping one eye on the mechanic. The guard pointed out the same cuts Marcus had found, then shifted to the brake assembly. Ryan's expression hardened. "When did you notice this?" Marcus lowered his hand slightly. "About 3 minutes before you arrived. I was checking the tire and saw something wrong with the brake line." "And how exactly would a random mechanic know to check for sabotage?" The question carried accusation, suspicion, and a threat all wrapped together. Marcus had heard that tone before, usually right before someone made a decision that got people killed. "Because I used to do this for a living." "Do what?" "Find the things people don't want found." Ryan's hand moved closer to his weapon. "That's not an answer." Ms. Sterling stepped forward, rain streaming down her face. "Ryan, check what he's saying. Look at the brake line yourself." The security chief hesitated, then gestured for one of his men to cover Marcus while he examined the Mercedes. 2 minutes of silence followed, broken only by the rain and the distant rush of occasional traffic on the highway. Finally, Ryan straightened and pulled out his phone. "Get me forensics. I need a full vehicle sweep." He paused, listening. "I don't care what time it is. Get them here now." He ended the call and turned back to Marcus. "You're not going anywhere until we verify your story." "Didn't plan on it?" Another guard approached with a laptop. "Sir, I pulled the dashcam footage from the last 6 hours. They huddled around the screen while Marcus stood in the rain, water pooling in his boots. He could have tried to leave. His truck was right there, engine still running. But running would only confirm whatever suspicions they already had. Better to let them check the facts and realize he was telling the truth. The laptop's glow reflected off Ryan's face as he watched the footage. His jaw tightened. "Back it up. There. Freeze it." Ms. Sterling leaned in to see. Marcus couldn't make out the screen from where he stood, but he could read the shift in her posture. Fear replacing irritation. Ryan looked up at Marcus. "What did you do in the military?" "I was an engineer. Vehicle security. Be more specific." "I found bombs and sabotage before they killed people." The words hung in the wet air between them. Ryan's expression shifted, suspicion giving way to calculation. He glanced at the Mercedes, then back at Marcus. "Show me exactly what you found." Marcus approached slowly, kneeling beside the wheel well. He pointed to the brake line first. "See the cut? It's about halfway through the line, positioned where normal inspection wouldn't catch it. At low speeds, the pressure holds, but at highway speed, especially in a turn, the line fails and the brakes go out. Exactly. And the tire? Marcus shifted the flashlight to the sidewall. Same principle. They weakened it with precision cuts, then probably used a spike insert to guarantee failure. The tire goes out first. Driver slows down, tries to control the vehicle. That's when the brake failure hits. Ryan's face had gone pale. When would it have happened? Marcus considered the damage pattern, the depth of the cuts, the hydraulic leak. Based on the fluid loss, you would have made it maybe half a mile. There's a sharp curve about a quarter mile up the road. If I were setting this up, I'd want the failure to happen there. Ms. Sterling's voice came out barely above a whisper. The Shenandoah curve? That's a 90-degree turn with a 50-foot drop on one side, Ryan said. If the brakes failed there... He didn't finish. He didn't need to. They all knew what a vehicle moving at highway speed would do when it hit that curve with no brakes and a blown tire. One of the guards cleared his throat. Sir, the footage shows a white cargo van at the gas station. It was parked next to Ms. Sterling's vehicle for approximately 90 seconds. Driver got out, walked around the rear quarter panel, then left. No plates. Get me a screenshot. Run it through facial recognition. Ryan turned to Marcus. You said you used to do this for a living. Where? Marcus stood, brushing water from his hands. Afghanistan. Kandahar Province. Convoy Security Detail. What unit? Special Transport Group, 3rd Battalion, 2012 to 2018. Why'd you leave? The question landed like a punch. Marcus could feel Brooks's hand in his, could hear the whisper that had become his last words, could smell the smoke and blood and burning metal. He forced his voice to stay level. Lost someone. Decided I was done watching people die. Ryan studied him for a long moment, then holstered his weapon. Ms. Sterling, we need to move you to a secure location. The convoy's been compromised. All vehicles? Just yours. The others are clean. But we can't risk using this one. Can you tow it? Marcus shook his head. Towing could shift the brake pressure enough to rupture the line completely. You'd lose all hydraulic fluid before you made it a mile. So what do you suggest? Marcus walked back to his truck and retrieved a specialized clamp from his toolbox. He'd carried the same kit in Afghanistan back when preventing mechanical failures meant the difference between coming home and getting shipped back in pieces. The clamp was designed to seal damaged hydraulic lines temporarily, long enough to move a vehicle safely under controlled conditions. I can install a pressure lock. It'll hold the line stable as long as you don't go over 25 miles per hour. Get you to wherever you need to go. Ryan watched as Marcus worked, the professional efficiency with which he accessed the brake system and positioned the clamp. The rain had soaked through everyone's clothes now, turning the shoulder into a slick, miserable worksite. Marcus didn't mind. He'd worked in worse conditions and at least no one was shooting at him. The clamp clicked into place. Marcus checked the pressure gauge twice, then stood. That'll hold, but I mean it about the speed limit. Push it any faster and the clamp could fail. How long will it take to get to Sterling Defense Headquarters from here? At 25 miles per hour, about 45 minutes. Ryan pulled out his phone again. We'll need to adjust the route. Take surface streets instead of the highway. Ms. Sterling stepped closer to Marcus, her previous irritation replaced by something that might have been respect, or maybe just recognition that she'd misjudged him. Thank you. You may have saved my life. Just doing what needed doing. I'd like you to come with us. We may need someone who understands this kind of sabotage. Marcus thought of Sophie sleeping in her bed, the note he'd left on the kitchen table, the promise he'd made to himself about being a better father. Every instinct told him to politely decline, go home, and let these people handle their own problems. Then he looked at the brake line, at the precise cuts designed to kill without leaving obvious evidence, and thought about what would have happened if he'd turned down that phone call. Ms. Sterling would be dead in a ravine right now, and whoever had set this trap would have gotten away with it. My daughter's at home. We can arrange protection for her. She's 9 years old. She doesn't need armed guards scaring her. She needs her father. Ryan stepped forward. Mr. Webb, whoever did this is a professional. They planned this carefully. If they know Ms. Sterling survived, they'll adapt. We need someone who can identify their next move. You've got a whole security team. Who missed this completely? Ryan interrupted. You spotted it in under 5 minutes. That tells me you've seen work like this before. Marcus wanted to argue, but the truth sat heavy in his chest. He had seen it before. Too many times. And every time he'd ignored his instincts, people had died. Brooks' voice whispered from memory. Don't let this job take them too. But the job wasn't taking anyone tonight. It was protecting someone. There was a difference. I'll come with you as far as headquarters, but then I'm going home to my daughter. Ms. Sterling nodded. Fair enough. Ryan gestured toward the lead Escalade. You'll ride with us. Your truck can follow with the support vehicle. Marcus hesitated, then handed his keys to one of the guards. He climbed into the passenger seat of the damaged Mercedes while Ryan took the wheel and Ms. Sterling settled in the back. The convoy formed up around them, 3 Escalades creating a protective shell as they pulled slowly back onto the highway. The speedometer never climbed above 25. Marcus watched the road ahead, his mind already working through scenarios. Professional sabotage meant professional planning. Someone had studied Ms. Sterling's routine, identified her vehicle, gained access to it long enough to set the trap. That took time, resources, and expertise. It also meant the job wasn't finished. How long was your car parked at that gas station? Ms. Sterling met his eyes in the rearview mirror. Maybe 10 minutes. I went inside to take a call. Who knew you'd be there? It wasn't planned. I was running late and needed coffee. So either someone was following you and took advantage of the opportunity, or they had access to her schedule and predicted she'd stop there. Ryan finished. Marcus nodded. How many people know your routine? Too many. Executive team, security detail, administrative staff. Probably 40 people at minimum. Any recent terminations? Disciplinary actions? Ms. Sterling's expression darkened. We fired our CFO 8 months ago. Gerald Voss. He was embezzling company funds. How much? $40 million. Marcus whistled low. That's motive. It's circumstantial. Gerald's trial starts Monday. I'm the primary witness. The pieces clicked together in Marcus's mind with the clarity of a well-executed plan. Remove the witness before the trial. Make it look like an accident. No murder investigation, no additional scrutiny, just a tragic loss that would throw the prosecution into chaos. He's going to try again. Ryan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. We'll increase security protocols. Full sweep of all vehicles daily, limited access to Ms. Sterling's schedule. Won't matter if he's already inside your organization. The words dropped into the car like stones. Ms. Sterling leaned forward. What do you mean? The gas station timing. You said you didn't plan to stop there, but someone was ready. That means either they were following you close enough to react immediately, which we would have spotted, Ryan said, or they knew you well enough to predict your behavior, which means someone close to you is feeding information to whoever did this. Silence filled the vehicle. The rain had lightened to a drizzle, and the convoy's headlights reflected off wet pavement as they navigated surface streets toward downtown Richmond. Marcus could feel Ryan processing the implications, running through his team in his mind, looking for cracks in the wall of trust he'd built around Ms. Sterling. I've known most of my team for over a decade. Then you know them well enough to know who might have financial problems, who's gotten divorced recently, who has family in trouble, anyone vulnerable to pressure or bribes. Ryan's jaw worked as he considered it. I'll need to review personnel files, background checks, financial records. Do it quietly. If there is a leak, you don't want them to know you're looking. The Escalade ahead of them slowed, and Marcus saw why. A white cargo van sat at an intersection, hazard lights blinking. His entire body tensed. Ryan, I see it. The security chief spoke into his radio. All units, white cargo van at the intersection of Grace and Adams, possible hostile. Maintain formation but prepare for evasive action. The convoy adjusted, vehicles spreading slightly to give themselves maneuvering room. Marcus's hand moved instinctively to the door handle, ready to bail if the van made a move. But it didn't. As they passed, he caught a glimpse of the driver. Middle-aged, frustrated, phone pressed to his ear. Not a threat, just someone with car trouble. Marcus exhaled slowly and released the door handle. Sorry, probably nothing. Don't apologize for being cautious. Ryan's voice held a note of professional respect. In this business, paranoia keeps you alive. They drove in silence for another mile. The tension in the car had shifted from immediate crisis to the slow burn of sustained alertness. Marcus recognized the feeling from convoy duty. The knowledge that the next hour could pass without incident or explode into violence with no warning. You had to stay ready for both. Ms. Sterling spoke from the back seat. You said you lost someone in Afghanistan. How did it happen? Marcus kept his eyes on the road ahead. IED. I detected the signature but couldn't convince command to stop the convoy. We drove right over it. Were you in the vehicle that was hit? No, my friend was. I'm sorry. Yeah, me too. The city lights of Richmond grew brighter as they approached the downtown core. Sterling Defense Technologies occupied a 15-story glass and steel tower that rose like a monument to corporate success. The convoy pulled into an underground parking garage, security barriers rising to let them pass. Marcus counted 6 armed guards in the garage alone. Ms. Sterling didn't just have protection. She had an entire private army. Ryan parked and turned to face Marcus. I'd like you to come upstairs, review our security protocols, tell me what I'm missing. That's not what I do anymore. You found 3 professional sabotage points in under 5 minutes. That is exactly what you do. Marcus thought about Sophie waking up to another empty house, another broken promise. But he also thought about the precision of those cuts, the calculated cruelty of a plan designed to murder someone and make it look random. Whoever had done this wasn't going to stop just because the first attempt failed. 2 hours, then I'm going home. Deal. They rode the elevator to the 12th floor in silence. The doors opened onto a suite of offices that screamed executive privilege, polished marble, art that probably cost more than Marcus's house, furniture that looked uncomfortable by design. Ms. Sterling led them to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the James River. Ryan spread out building schematics and security protocols on the table. Marcus studied them with the same focus he'd once applied to convoy routes through hostile territory. The patterns were different, but the principles remained the same. Find the weak points, identify the gaps, figure out where an enemy would strike next. Your vehicle access is too open. Anyone with a company badge can reach the executive garage. We have cameras. Cameras don't stop someone who knows where to stand to avoid them. You need physical checkpoints, human verification, not just badge scans. Ryan made notes. What else? Your protection detail is predictable. Same faces every day, same rotation schedule. Makes it easy for someone to study your patterns and plan around them. Randomization protocols? Would help. Also, Marcus pointed to the route maps. You're using the same 3 paths to move Ms. Sterling between locations. That's suicide if someone's watching. We vary the timing. Timing doesn't matter if they know the route. They just wait at a choke point and spring the trap when you show up. Ryan's expression had shifted from defensive to focused. He was listening now, really listening, the way good soldiers did when someone spoke from experience. Ms. Sterling poured coffee from a carafe and handed Marcus a cup. You're very good at this. I used to be. Why did you really leave the military? The question was gentle, but it cut deep anyway. Marcus took a sip of coffee to buy time, knowing that whatever he said next would reveal more than he wanted. Because I was right and my commanding officer was wrong and my best friend died because of it. After that, I couldn't. He stopped. the words catching in his throat. I couldn't keep doing a job where being right didn't matter if the people in charge didn't listen. Understanding flickered in Ms. Sterling's eyes. So you became a mechanic. I fix things that are broken, simple problems with simple solutions, no politics, no chain of command telling me to ignore what I can see with my own eyes. And tonight? Tonight I stopped to help someone who needed it. That's all. Ryan's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen and his face went pale. We've got a problem. Ryan's phone lit up his face in the dim conference room, casting shadows that made his expression even grimmer. He turned the screen toward Marcus and Ms. Sterling without a word. The image showed a residential street shot from a distance through what looked like a telephoto lens. A small duplex with peeling paint and a rickety porch. Marcus's stomach dropped as recognition hit. That was his house. And there, framed in the living room window, was Sophie. The timestamp read 15 minutes ago. They know where you live. Ryan's voice carried the flat certainty of someone delivering bad news he'd seen coming. This came to Ms. Sterling's personal email. No message, just the photo. Marcus was already moving toward the elevator before the words fully registered. Ms. Sterling stepped into his path, her hand raised. Wait, if you run home now, that's exactly what they want. They're trying to separate you from us. My daughter is in that house, and she's safer there than she would be if you lead whoever's watching straight to her. The authority in her voice stopped him mid-stride. Let us handle this properly. Ryan can send a team. I don't want your team scaring a 9-year-old girl in the middle of the night. Would you rather someone else gets to her first? The logic was sound, and Marcus hated it. Every instinct screamed at him to get in his truck and drive to put himself between Sophie and whatever threat was circling. But rushing in blind was how people died. How Brooks had died because Marcus hadn't been able to make anyone listen when he'd known something was wrong. Ryan was already on his phone, barking orders in the clipped shorthand of military-trained security. Team 2, I need immediate deployment to 1847 West Hampton Avenue. Surveillance only, no contact. Subject is a 9-year-old female civilian, possible hostile observation in the area. Get eyes on her now and keep them there. He ended the call and looked at Marcus. They'll be there in 8 minutes. Former Secret Service, both of them. They'll watch your daughter without her knowing they're there. And if whoever took that photo is still watching, then they'll see us coming and run, which tells us they're operating with limited resources. Professional sabotage on the vehicle, but only enough manpower for observation. That's useful information. Marcus forced himself to think past the rage building in his chest. Ryan was right. The threat had revealed itself, which meant it could be countered. But the calculation felt hollow when it was Sophie's face in that window miss. Sterling's phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her entire body went rigid. It's him. Who? Gerald Voss. She held up the screen, showing a blocked number and a simple text message. Heard you had some car trouble tonight, Catherine. Such a dangerous road. Shame about all those curves. The words were casual, almost friendly. The threat underneath was crystalline. Ryan moved to trace the call, but Ms. Sterling was already dialing back. The phone rang 4 times before connecting. A man's voice filled the speaker, smooth and cultured, with an edge that suggested old money and older grudges. Catherine, still alive, I see. What do you want, Gerald? Just checking on an old colleague, making sure you're taking care of yourself. You work too hard, you know. All those late nights, all that stress, it catches up with a person. Marcus watched Ms. Sterling's face harden into something cold and dangerous. Whatever relationship she'd once had with this man had curdled into something toxic. If you think threatening me will stop Monday's testimony, you're more deluded than I thought. Threatening? Catherine, I'm concerned. Someone tried to kill you tonight, a professional job from what I hear. You must have made quite a few enemies building that empire of yours. Cut the performance. We both know you hired someone. Do we? That's a serious accusation. I hope you have proof because my lawyers are very good at making accusations disappear. A pause. Then the voice shifted register, losing its polish. You destroyed me, Catherine. Took everything I built over 20 years and threw it away like garbage. Did you think I'd just accept that? Go quietly to prison while you stood there judging me? You stole $40 million from a company that trusted you. I earned that money, every dollar of it. You just couldn't see past your precious rules and regulations to understand how business actually works. I understand perfectly. You're a thief and a coward, and Monday morning I'm going to make sure everyone else understands it too. The laugh that came through the speaker held no humor. You're assuming you'll make it to Monday. That's optimistic given your recent luck with vehicles, but I suppose your new friend might help with that. Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. Gerald knew about him, which meant whoever had taken that photo of Sophie had reported back already. Leave him out of this. Why would I? He's part of this now. Him and that sweet little girl of his. What was her name again? Papers rustled on Gerald's end. Sophie, 9 years old, 4th grade at Westover Hills Elementary. Takes the bus home every day at 3:15, very punctual child. The rage that had been simmering in Marcus's chest ignited into something white-hot and focused. He grabbed the phone from Ms. Sterling's hand. You threaten my daughter again, and I'll make sure you never see the inside of a courtroom. And who are you exactly, the mechanic? How noble defending your employer. But you're out of your depth, friend. This isn't Afghanistan. You can't just shoot your way through problems here. I never shot anyone. I found the traps before they went off. That's what I'm going to do to you. Is that so? Well, I look forward to watching you try. In the meantime, give Sophie my best. Sweet dreams, gentlemen. The call ended. Marcus stood there, phone gripped so tightly his knuckles had gone white, breathing hard through his nose. Ryan carefully extracted the device from his hand. We can trace that. He knows you will. He doesn't care. Marcus turned to Ms. Sterling. This isn't about stopping your testimony anymore. This is personal. He wants you to know he's coming. Then we increase protection. Move Catherine to a safe house. Assign round-the-clock security to your daughter. No. The word came out harder than Marcus intended. Sophie doesn't get dragged into this. I'll handle my family's safety. Ms. Sterling stepped closer, and for the first time since they'd met, he saw past the executive armor to something raw underneath. Fear, yes, but also guilt. Gerald's right. You are out of your depth. This man has resources, connections. He can hurt you and your daughter in ways you can't prevent alone. Then tell me what I'm dealing with. Who is Gerald Voss, really? She walked to the window, staring out at the city lights scattered across the James River Valley. When she spoke, her voice carried the weight of old mistakes. Gerald was my CFO for 18 years. I trusted him completely. He had access to everything: finances, contracts, strategic planning. We built Sterling Defense together from a small consulting firm into a major defense contractor, 200 employees, $750 million in annual revenue. What happened? I got comfortable, stopped checking the books as carefully. Delegated too much authority. By the time our auditors caught the discrepancies, he'd moved $40 million through shell companies. Investments that didn't exist, contracts that were never signed. He was bleeding the company dry, and I was too focused on growth to notice. Ryan added the next part. When we confronted him, he tried to frame Catherine. Said she'd authorized the transfers, had forged signatures, falsified board minutes, created an entire paper trail pointing at her. But you proved he was lying. Eventually, it took 6 months and cost us $3 million in legal fees. The publicity nearly destroyed the company. We lost contracts, key employees left, our stock dropped 40%. Ms. Sterling turned back to face them. And through it all, Gerald sat in his lawyer's office smiling. Because even if he went to prison, he'd already won. He'd hurt me, damaged my reputation, taken something I'd built and poisoned it. So this isn't just about avoiding prison. No, this is about revenge. Gerald wants me to suffer the way he thinks he suffered. Losing my company would be a start. Losing my life would be better, and making sure I know it's coming. That's the point. He wants me afraid. Marcus thought about the precision of those cuts on the brake line, the calculated timing of the tire failure, the way Gerald had casually mentioned Sophie's name. This wasn't someone acting out of desperation. This was methodology, planning, control. People who plan something this carefully don't stop at one attempt. I know. And they don't do it alone. Someone installed those devices on your car. Someone took that photo of my house. Gerald's in custody. Actually, he's not. Ryan pulled up a file on his tablet. Posted bail 6 months ago, $2 million. He's been free this whole time, wearing an ankle monitor. House arrest at his estate in Henrico County. So he has access to phones, computers, visitors, everything he needs to coordinate an operation. The ankle monitor limits his physical movement, but not his ability to communicate. Marcus paced the length of the conference room, his mind working through scenarios. Professional sabotage meant professional help. Gerald wouldn't risk hiring random criminals for this. He'd want someone with military or intelligence training, someone who could plan and execute without leaving evidence. The mechanic. Ryan looked up sharply. What? That's what Gerald called him on the phone, not by name, just the mechanic, like it's a title. Could be a code name or an inside joke. Or it's what he actually does, takes apart problems piece by piece until they stop working. Marcus stopped at the window, looking out at the same view Ms. Sterling had studied moments before. I've heard of contractors like that, specialists who make things look like accidents. They're expensive and they're careful, the kind of people who don't leave witnesses. So we're dealing with at least 2 threats. Gerald coordinating from house arrest and this mechanic doing the actual work. Probably more than 2. You don't set up something this elaborate with just one field operative. The mechanic would need support, surveillance, logistics. At minimum, we're looking at a 3-person team. Ms. Sterling sank into a chair, the exhaustion finally catching up with her. How do you know all this? Because it's how I'd do it. If I wanted to kill someone and make it look random, I'd study their patterns for weeks, map their routes, identify choke points. Build multiple options so if one failed I had backups ready. He turned to face them. Gerald's had 8 months to plan this. That's more than enough time to put together a comprehensive operation. Then what do? We make him think his plan is working. Ryan frowned. Explain. Marcus pulled up a chair, his exhaustion pushed aside by the familiar mental engagement of solving a tactical problem. Right now, Gerald knows his first attempt failed. He knows I'm here. He knows you're increasing security. Every move we make from this point forward he'll be watching for, so we give him what he expects to see. Which is? Panic, defensive posture. Ms. Sterling locked down in a secure location while we scramble to figure out his next move. Meanwhile, he's planning that move, adapting, finding the gaps in whatever protection we put in place. And the alternative? We stop reacting and start hunting. Feed him false information through the leak in your organization. Make him commit to a plan we control, then we take him apart. The silence that followed held a different quality than before. Ryan was calculating odds, running scenarios, weighing risks. Miss Sterling was studying Marcus with an intensity that suggested she was reevaluating everything she thought she knew about small-town mechanics. Finally, Ryan spoke. You're talking about using Catherine as bait. I'm talking about taking control of the situation instead of letting Gerald dictate terms, but yeah, that's part of it. Absolutely not. Ms. Sterling stood and the executive authority snapped back into place. I won't risk my employees' lives on some elaborate counter-operation. We'll do this by the book. Maximum security until the trial. Let Gerald make his next move and we'll be ready. You won't be ready. Marcus kept his voice level, but he could feel Brooks's ghost at his shoulder, whispering warnings about officers who thought following procedure was the same as being safe. Gerald's already inside your security. He knows your protocols. He'll find the gaps because someone on your team will tell him where they are. Then we'll find the leak. How? Run background checks on everyone? That takes weeks. Interview them all? The guilty one will just lie. Meanwhile, Gerald keeps planning and you keep waiting for a threat you can't see coming. Ryan cleared his throat. He has a point, Catherine. Defense is reactive. We'd be giving Gerald the initiative. And your plan gives him what, exactly? A chance to kill me in a controlled environment? I'm not interested in being a martyr for tactical elegance. You won't be a martyr if we do this right. Marcus leaned forward, elbows on the table. But you need to trust that I know how these operations work. I've seen them from both sides. The people trying to stop them and the people trying to make them succeed. Right now, you're predictable. We make you unpredictable, Gerald's plan falls apart. Or it accelerates. He gets desperate and takes risks. Desperate people make mistakes. That's when you catch them. Ms. Sterling looked at Ryan, then back at Marcus. The calculation happening behind her eyes was complex, weighing trust against survival, protocol against necessity. Finally, she nodded once. 2 conditions. First, my security team stays in place. You advise, but Ryan makes the final calls. Second, if this goes wrong and people get hurt, it's on me, not you. I'm the one making this decision. Agreed. Then tell me what you need. Before Marcus could answer, Ryan's phone buzzed again. He checked it and his expression darkened. Team 2 just arrived at your house. Your daughter's fine, but there's a problem. What kind of problem? The car that was watching earlier is gone, but they found something on your porch. The elevator ride down to the parking garage felt like it took hours. Marcus wanted to demand details, but Ryan was already coordinating with his team, issuing orders in that rapid-fire efficiency that came from years of crisis management. Miss Sterling stood beside Marcus, silent, her earlier frustration replaced by something that looked like regret. They climbed into one of the Escalades, Ryan driving with 2 guards following in a second vehicle. The streets of Richmond rolled past, empty at this hour except for the occasional taxi or delivery truck. Marcus watched the city blur into residential neighborhoods, familiar landmarks that felt alien under the weight of immediate threat. His phone buzzed. Sophie. Ba? There's a package on the porch. Should I bring it in? Marcus's blood turned to ice. No, don't touch it. Don't even go near it. Are you inside? Yeah, I was getting water and I saw it through the window. It's weird because it's like 2 in the morning. Listen to me very carefully. I need you to go to your room, close the door, and stay away from windows. Can you do that? Bah, you're scaring me. I know, baby girl, but I need you to trust me. Go to your room right now. I'm on my way home. Okay. The fear in her voice nearly broke him. How long? 10 minutes. Just stay in your room. The call ended. Marcus turned to Ryan. How far out are your people? They're there now. Evacuating your daughter was the next step, but if you've told her to stay inside, I'm not letting strangers drag my daughter out of her house in the middle of the night unless there's no other choice. Your team can check the package from a safe distance. If it's an explosive, then we'll deal with it. But I'm betting it's not. Gerald wants fear, not collateral damage. He's sending a message. The Escalade accelerated, Ryan pushing the speed limit as they navigated toward West Hampton. Marcus's neighborhood materialized out of the darkness. Familiar houses, familiar cars, everything exactly as it should be except for the 2 unmarked vehicles parked 3 houses down from his duplex. A man in civilian clothes approached as they pulled up. Early 30s, athletic build, moving with the controlled awareness of someone trained to expect trouble. He nodded at Ryan. Packages on the front porch. Standard cardboard box, no markings, no return address. Thermal scan shows no heat signature. X-ray reveals what looks like paperwork inside. No wires, no electronic components. You're sure? 95%. But if you want EOD to take a look, no time. Marcus was already moving toward the house. Ryan caught his arm. Wait for the all clear. That is my daughter in there. I'm not waiting for anything. He pulled free and walked up the porch steps, each board creaking under his weight. The box sat centered on the welcome mat, professionally packaged with clean tape seams. Marcus knelt beside it, studying the exterior for any signs of tampering or threat. Nothing obvious, just a box. He picked it up. Light, maybe a pound, if that. The front door opened and Sophie stood there in her pajamas, eyes wide with fear and confusion. Marcus set the box down immediately and pulled her into a hug. "You okay? What's happening? Why are there men with guns and cars outside?" "It's complicated, baby girl, but you're safe. I promise you're safe." "Is someone trying to hurt us?" The question was direct, and Sophie's eyes demanded an honest answer. Marcus had never lied to his daughter about the serious things, and he wasn't going to start now. "Someone's trying to scare us, but they're not going to succeed." Ryan appeared behind them, having apparently decided the package was safe enough to approach. He gestured to the box. "May I?" Marcus nodded. Ryan produced a tactical knife and carefully sliced through the tape, opening the flaps with deliberate slowness. Inside, a single manila folder rested on top of bubble wrap. Ryan lifted it out and opened it. Photographs spilled onto the porch. Sophie at school, walking to the bus. Sophie at the library checking out books. Sophie at the playground near their house, laughing on the swings. Dozens of photos spanning what looked like several weeks. Each one professionally composed, taken from concealed positions. The message was brutally clear: we can reach her whenever we want, and underneath all the photos a single sheet of paper with typed text. The past has a way of catching up, doesn't it, Marcus? Ask yourself, is one woman's life worth your daughter's safety? Because those are the stakes now. Walk away and Sophie stays safe. Keep helping Catherine Sterling and we'll have to make different arrangements. You have until Monday morning to decide. A friend. Marcus crushed the paper in his fist, rage and fear warring in his chest. Sophie had seen the photos. She pulled closer to him, trembling. "Bah, who took these?" "Bad people. But they're not going to hurt you." "How do you know?" "Because they would have already," he wanted to say. "Because this is psychological warfare, not an actual threat. Because the moment they harm a child, every resource in the city comes down on them and Gerald loses his chance at Catherine." But he couldn't explain tactical logic to a 9-year-old girl who just saw proof that strangers had been following her for weeks. "Because I'm not going to let them, and neither are these people." He gestured to Ryan and the guards. "They're going to keep you safe while I make sure the bad people can't hurt anyone." "By helping that woman? The one from the phone call?" "Yeah. But they said if you help her..." "They're lying, Sophie. People like this, they try to control you by making you afraid. But if we give in to fear, they win, and I didn't teach you to let bullies win, did I?" She shook her head, some of the terror in her eyes hardening into something more like determination. That was his daughter, scared, yes, but not broken. Never broken. Ms. Sterling's voice came from behind them. "I'm so sorry. This is my fault. I should never have involved you." Marcus turned to find her standing at the base of the porch steps, her professional composure cracked by what looked like genuine guilt. He stood, keeping Sophie close. "This isn't about you involving me. This is about Gerald trying to use my daughter as leverage. That's a line you don't cross." "Then let us protect her. Full security detail, safe house, everything." Sophie pulled on Marcus's sleeve. "Bah, I don't want to leave. This is our home." "I know, baby girl, but sometimes we have to do things we don't want to do to stay safe. You said bullies don't get to win. They don't, but being smart isn't the same as giving up." Ryan stepped forward. "We have a secure apartment downtown, 2 bedrooms, full kitchen, guard rotation outside the door, but she'd have privacy inside. We can arrange for her schoolwork to be sent over. Keep her routine as normal as possible." Marcus looked down at Sophie, seeing Brooks in her expression. That stubborn refusal to accept an outcome she didn't like. The same stubbornness that had gotten him killed when he'd refused to evacuate even though Marcus had told him the convoy was compromised. "What do you think, Sophie? Want to stay somewhere safe for a few days while Ba deals with this? Will you be there?" "Not all the time, but I'll visit every day." "Can I bring my books? As many as you want." She considered for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay, but you have to promise you'll come back. Real promise, not fake promise." "I promise." Real promise. 20 minutes later, Sophie was packed and sitting in one of the Escalades, clutching a backpack full of novels and her favorite stuffed rabbit. Marcus leaned through the window. Remember the rules? Stay inside unless the guards say it's okay. Don't talk to strangers. Call you if anything feels wrong. Good girl, I'll see you tomorrow morning. Ba, are you really going to stop the bad people? He thought about Gerald's voice on that phone call, the casual cruelty of threatening a child, thought about the precision of those cuts on the brake line, designed to kill without leaving evidence, thought about Brooks dying in the desert while Marcus screamed for someone, anyone, to listen. Yeah, I'm going to stop them. The Escalade pulled away, carrying Sophie towards safety and leaving Marcus standing in the street with Ryan and Ms. Sterling. The adrenaline that had sustained him through the last few hours was starting to fade, leaving exhaustion and something harder to name. Purpose, maybe, or just old anger finding a new target. Ryan's phone buzzed yet again. He checked it and swore quietly. What now? Forensics finished the sweep on your vehicle. Found something interesting in the security footage from the gas station. He pulled up a video file and turned the screen so they could both see. Grainy surveillance footage showed Ms. Sterling's Mercedes parked at a pump. A white cargo van pulled up alongside it, blocking the view from most angles. A man in coveralls stepped out, walked around to the rear of the Mercedes, spent exactly 90 seconds out of frame, then returned to his van and drove away. Can we get a clear shot of his face? Already tried. He kept his head down, wore a baseball cap, but watch this. Ryan scrubbed forward to where the van was pulling out. For just a moment, the angle shifted and the driver's profile became visible. Ryan zoomed in, enhancing the image until features resolved. Marcus felt recognition slam into him like a physical blow. I know him. Both Ryan and Ms. Sterling turned to stare. You know the mechanic? Not by that name, but I know his face. Marcus's mind raced backward through years of convoy duty, mission briefings, intelligence reports. Afghanistan, 2017. There was a contractor working explosive disposal, American guy, former Army EOD. He got discharged for selling sensitive information to local insurgents. Last I heard, he disappeared into the private sector. You're sure it's the same person? 90%. He's older now, different beard, but the bone structure's the same. And it makes sense. Someone with EOD training would know exactly how to sabotage a vehicle to make it look like mechanical failure. Ryan was already typing into his phone. Give me everything you remember, name, unit, any identifying details. Thomas Lang, Sergeant First Class, 52nd Ordnance Disposal. Got caught selling IED schematics to contractors who were then selling them to insurgents. The Army prosecuted him for treason, but the case fell apart on a technicality. They gave him a dishonorable discharge and let him walk. And now he's working for Gerald Voss. Looks that way. Ms. Sterling pulled up a database on her tablet, running searches through military personnel records. Here, Thomas Lang, age 32. Last known address in Maryland 3 years ago. No current residence on file. Multiple complaints filed with the Better Business Bureau for a security consulting firm that went bankrupt. Suspected in 2 insurance fraud cases but never charged. So he went from military disposal expert to criminal contractor. It's not uncommon. The skills transfer easily and the pay's better. Ryan forwarded the information to his team. If we can confirm Lang is the mechanic, we can track him. Find out where he's staying, who he's working with, build a case. Gerald will have insulated himself. Lang won't have direct contact with him. Then we follow the money. Someone's paying Lang and that trail leads somewhere. Marcus looked back at his house, dark now, empty. The porch light casting long shadows across the yard. 24 hours ago, his biggest concern had been making it home in time for dinner. Now his daughter was in protective custody and he was hunting a professional killer with ties to his past. Brooks' voice echoed in his memory. You can't save everyone, Marcus, but you can save the ones in front of you. Sophie was safe. That was what mattered. Everything else was just tactics. What's the plan? Ryan closed his phone. We go back to headquarters, review everything we know about Lang, build a profile of his methods, his patterns, figure out where he'll hit next and get there first. And Gerald? We put pressure on him, make him think his operation is falling apart, force him to make mistakes. That could accelerate his timeline, or it could make him sloppy. Either way, it's better than sitting around waiting for the next attack, Miss. Sterling walked to the Escalade and opened the door. Then let's stop wasting time. They drove back to Sterling Defense in silence, each of them processing the shift in circumstances. The investigation had moved from defensive reaction to active pursuit. Marcus found himself slipping back into old patterns of thought, threat assessment, contingency planning, the mental chess game of predicting an enemy's next 3 moves. It felt good, and that scared him more than he wanted to admit. The conference room had transformed during their absence. Ryan's security team had set up workstations, pulled files, mapped out timelines on whiteboards. 3 analysts were already deep into background checks on every employee who'd had access to Ms. Sterling's vehicle over the past month. Ryan pointed to a timeline spanning the wall. Gerald was arrested 8 months ago, posted bail 6 weeks later. Since then, he's been confined to house arrest with strict communication monitoring. But here's where it gets interesting. He tapped a series of dates. 3 months after his release, a shell company registered in Delaware purchased property in Chesterfield County. Industrial warehouse paid in cash. 2 weeks later, that same company hired a security consulting firm to provide asset protection services. Guess who owns that consulting firm? Thomas Lang. Through 6 different layers of corporate structure, yes. But it all traces back to him. Gerald's been building this operation since the day he made bail. He knew Catherine would testify. He knew he'd need a way to stop her, and he had the resources to make it happen. Marcus studied the timeline, looking for gaps and patterns. What about communication? If Gerald's under house arrest with monitoring, how's he coordinating with Lang? Lawyers, they have attorney-client privilege, which means their communications can't be monitored or used as evidence. Gerald's legal team includes 8 attorneys. Any one of them could be acting as a courier. So we can't intercept their messages or trace their calls. Not legally. But we can watch Lang, track his movements, see who he meets with. One of the analysts looked up from her computer. Sir, I've got something. Thomas Lang used a credit card at a hardware store in Chesterfield yesterday. Purchased electrical wire, industrial adhesive, and a pneumatic drill. Building another device. Looks that way, and the hardware store has security cameras. I'm pulling the footage now. The video appeared on the main screen, Lang walking through aisles, selecting items with the casual confidence of someone who knew exactly what he needed. He paid cash, but used a credit card for the initial purchase, probably not realizing the transaction would be flagged. Marcus leaned closer to the screen. Freeze it there. The image stopped on Lang loading his purchases into a van. Not the same white cargo van from the gas station footage, but a dark blue panel van with commercial plates. Can you run those plates? The analyst's fingers flew across her keyboard. Registered to Apex Logistics, fleet vehicle. They have 46 vans registered under that company. So Lang's using a commercial fleet to blend in. Smart, nobody notices delivery vans. Ryan made a note. We'll put surveillance on Apex. See which van Lang's using and track its movements. He'll switch vehicles once he knows we're looking. Then we make sure he doesn't know. Ms. Sterling had been quiet through all of this, watching the investigation unfold with the intensity of someone whose life depended on its success. When she finally spoke, her voice carried a weight Marcus hadn't heard before. I should have seen this coming. Gerald always talked about contingency plans, multiple backups for every scenario. I thought it was just corporate paranoia. Turns out he was training himself for exactly this situation. You couldn't have predicted he'd try to kill you, couldn't I? I destroyed his career, took everything he'd built and burned it down. If someone did that to me, I'd want revenge too. Wanting revenge and committing murder are different things. Are they? Or is it just a matter of how far you're willing to go? She turned away from the screens. I've made a lot of enemies building this company. Stepped on people, destroyed competitors. Gerald's just the first one to actually do something about it. Marcus heard the self-recrimination in her voice. The guilt of someone who'd built an empire and never stopped to count the cost. He understood that feeling. He'd been so focused on doing his job in Afghanistan, on being the best engineer in his unit, that he'd forgotten the people depending on him had lives beyond the mission. Brooks had tried to tell him in the weeks before he died, slow down, take time to breathe, remember why we're here. Marcus hadn't listened, and Brooks had paid the price. Gerald's responsible for his own choices. Marcus kept his voice gentle but firm. You didn't force him to steal. You didn't force him to hire an assassin. Those were his decisions, and he owns them. But if I'd been more careful, if I'd caught the embezzlement earlier, then he'd be in prison and this wouldn't be happening. Or maybe he'd have found a different way to hurt you. You can't control other people's evil. You can only stop it when it shows up. Ryan's phone buzzed for what felt like the 100th time that night. He answered, listened for a moment, then his expression changed to something Marcus recognized immediately. The look of someone receiving news that changed everything. Say that again, slowly. He grabbed a pen and started writing. Uh-huh. And you're certain? No possibility of error? A pause. Right. Send me everything you have, now. The call ended. Ryan looked at Marcus and Ms. Sterling with an expression caught between triumph and dread. Thomas Lang isn't working alone. Forensics found a second set of tool marks on your brake line. Different technique, different implements. We're dealing with at least 2 mechanics. The implications hit Marcus like cold water. A team, at minimum. And if Gerald assembled a professional team, that means this operation is bigger than we thought. More resources, more planning, more ways for it to go wrong. Ms. Sterling sank into a chair. How many people does he have? We won't know until we find them. But standard protocol for an operation like this would be 3 to 5. 1 coordinator, 1 technical specialist, 1 surveillance. Maybe a driver and a backup. Ryan pulled up a new file on the screen. I've requested access to Gerald's phone records through his lawyers. It'll take a warrant, but we should have it by morning. That's too late. Gerald said Monday morning. That gives us... Marcus checked his watch. 48 hours. Then we move faster. One of the analysts raised her hand. Sir, I think I found our second mechanic. She pulled up DMV records showing a woman in her late 20s, dark hair, unremarkable features. Angela Porter, former Marine Corps mechanic, served in Iraq from 2015 to 2019. Dishonorable discharge for theft of military property. She sold spare parts on the black market to Iraqi contractors. Let me guess. She and Lang knew each other. Same battalion, overlapping deployment dates. They probably worked together. Marcus felt the tactical picture coming together. 2 disgraced military mechanics with complementary skills. One specialized in explosives, the other in vehicles. Both dishonorably discharged, both bitter about it, both willing to sell their expertise to the highest bidder. If Porter's working surveillance, she'd need a position with a clear view of Catherine's movements, somewhere she can watch without being noticed. Ryan was already pulling up building schematics. Sterling Defense has 58 companies in our building. Any one of them could be a front. Or she could be working nearby. Coffee shop, parking garage, office building with a view. Marcus studied the maps. What's across the street? Medical plaza, dental offices, optometry, general practitioners. Perfect cover. She gets a job as a receptionist or office assistant, sits at a desk by the window all day and watches everyone coming and going. No one questions it because she's just another employee. The analyst started cross-referencing employment records, checking new hires at all businesses within visual range of this building over the past 6 months. While they waited, Marcus walked to the window and looked out at the city. Somewhere down there, Angela Porter was watching. Maybe through a scope, maybe with binoculars, maybe just with patient eyes and a good memory. And somewhere else, Thomas Lang was building his next trap. And behind them both, Gerald Voss sat in his house arrest, pulling strings and waiting for Catherine Sterling to die. The complexity of it all should have been overwhelming. Instead, Marcus felt the old clarity settling over him. This was what he'd been trained for, not fixing transmissions or changing oil. Finding the pattern in chaos, seeing the trap before it closed. Got her. The analyst's voice cut through his thoughts. Angela Porter, hired 3 weeks ago as a medical billing specialist at Riverside Family Practice. 3rd floor, corner office with direct line of sight to this building. Ryan was already moving. I want eyes on that office. Full surveillance. But careful. If she spots us watching, she'll disappear. We should grab her now. Bring her in for questioning. On what charge? Working as a medical billing specialist isn't illegal. We don't have evidence tying her to the sabotage, just suspicion and military records. Marcus knew Ryan was right, but the frustration burned anyway. They'd identified 2 of Gerald's operatives and couldn't touch either one without proof. Meanwhile, the clock kept ticking toward Monday morning. Then we give them something to react to, force them to make a move we can see. Ms. Sterling understood immediately. You want to use me as bait. I want to create an opportunity where they have to commit. Right now, they're in control. They choose when and where to strike. We take that choice away by presenting a target too good to ignore. And if they take it, then we're ready, because this time, we'll know it's coming. The plan came together in the pre-dawn hours while Richmond slept. Marcus stood at the whiteboard, marker in hand, sketching out routes and timelines while Ryan's team fed him intelligence updates. Ms. Sterling had retreated to her office to make calls, coordinating Monday's court appearance while simultaneously preparing for the possibility she might not live to see it. The core concept was elegant in its simplicity. Stage a vulnerability so obvious that Gerald's team would have to exploit it. Ms. Sterling would leave the building through the main entrance at 8 a.m., drive her usual route to the courthouse for a pre-trial meeting with prosecutors. No visible security, no armored vehicle, just her alone in a regular sedan on predictable roads. Except none of it would be real. The decoy needs to match Catherine's build and coloring exactly. Ryan pulled up personnel files. We have 3 female agents who fit the profile. Martinez is closest, same height, same hair color. What about walking pattern, the way she carries herself? Marcus had watched enough surveillance footage to know that professionals didn't just look at faces. Gerald's people have been studying Catherine for months. They'll spot a substitute if the body language is wrong. Martinez has done executive protection for 5 years. She can mimic movement patterns. Can she do it while expecting someone to try to kill her? Because that changes everything. Fear affects posture, gait, reaction time. Ms. Sterling appeared in the doorway, coffee in hand. Then I'll do it myself. Absolutely not. Ryan didn't even look up from his tablet. That defeats the entire purpose of using a decoy. The purpose is to make Gerald's team commit to an attack on a controlled battlefield. They won't commit if they suspect it's a trap, and they will suspect if the target doesn't move exactly like me. Catherine, I've spent 20 years building this company. I know what I look like to people watching, the way I hold my briefcase, the shoes I wear, which hand I use to open car doors. Your agent can study footage for a week and still miss something. She set her coffee down with careful precision. Besides, this is my fight. I won't ask someone else to take a bullet meant for me. Marcus understood the logic even as he hated it. Decoys worked when the enemy had limited intelligence, but Gerald had months of observation. He'd know Catherine's patterns down to the smallest detail. Any deviation would trigger suspicion. If you do this, you wear body armor, full coverage, rated for rifle rounds. Under my suit jacket, it'll show. Then it shows, better alive and obvious than dead and subtle. She considered this, then nodded. What else? Ryan pulled up street maps. We'll have sniper teams on rooftops along your route. 4 spotters with overlapping fields of fire. If Lang or Porter make a move, we'll see them before they're in position. And if they use a remote device, something triggered from a distance, we sweep the route twice, once at midnight, once at 6 a.m. Any new objects, any fresh disturbances in the pavement, we investigate. Marcus traced the route with his finger, looking for choke points and ambush positions. 3 intersections stood out as obvious targets, places where traffic naturally slowed, where buildings provided cover, where escape routes branched in multiple directions. They'll hit here. He tapped the map at the intersection of Broad and Belvedere. Traffic light forces a stop. Office buildings on 3 sides give them elevated positions. And look at this. Construction zone on the east side. Perfect cover for pre-positioned equipment. We've had crews working that site for 2 months. Legitimate contractors, all vetted. Doesn't matter. All they need is 5 minutes to plant something. One crew member takes a bathroom break, another one slips a device into the construction materials. By the time anyone notices, it's too late. Ryan made notes. I'll have the site swept top to bottom. But Marcus, there are 100 places along this route where they could attack. We can't cover them all. We don't need to. We just need to make them think we can't. That's the whole point. Force them to commit to a plan while we're watching. They make their move, we spring the trap. One of the analysts interrupted, holding up a tablet. Sir, we've got movement on the Angela Porter surveillance. She just left her apartment. The screen showed grainy footage from a camera mounted across from Porter's building. A woman matching her description climbed into a Honda Civic and pulled into early morning traffic. The timestamp read 4:47 a.m. That's early for someone who doesn't start work until 8. Ryan activated tracking protocols. Where's she heading? They watched the feed as Porter drove through empty streets, taking a route that seemed random until Marcus recognized the pattern. She was checking for surveillance. 2 right turns in a row, a U-turn at a gas station, a sudden stop at a yellow light, all classic counter-surveillance moves. She knows we might be watching, or she's just being careful. Ryan switched to satellite view, tracking Porter's position in real time. She's heading toward Chesterfield. That's where Gerald's warehouse is located. Meeting with Lang? Possible. Or picking up equipment for the job. Marcus watched Porter's car navigate through industrial areas, finally pulling into a parking lot behind a row of storage units. She sat there for 3 minutes, presumably checking again for followers, then got out and approached Unit 247. The camera angle couldn't show what she removed from the unit, but when she returned to her car, she was carrying a large duffel bag. Heavy, based on how she moved. She loaded it into her trunk and drove away. I want to know what's in that bag. Ryan was already typing orders. Get a warrant for that storage unit. If we can prove she's stockpiling weapons or explosives, we won't get the warrant in time. Ms. Sterling spoke quietly but with certainty. Monday morning is 31 hours away. The courts won't process paperwork that fast, especially for a unit rented under a false name with no direct evidence of criminal activity. Then we go in without a warrant and contaminate any evidence we find, make it inadmissible in court. Gerald's lawyers would have a field day. The frustration in the room was palpable. They could see the threat assembling itself piece by piece, and legal constraints prevented them from stopping it directly. Marcus stepped back from the immediate problem and thought about the larger pattern. They're preparing for something big, something that requires serious equipment. How do you know? Because they're being sloppy. Porter's doing counter-surveillance at 5 in the morning, picking up equipment from a storage unit that's probably full of illegal weapons. That's desperation behavior. They know time's running out and they're taking risks they wouldn't normally take. Or they don't care about being caught afterward. The possibility hung heavy in the air. If Lang and Porter expected to die or get arrested immediately after killing Catherine, they'd have no reason to maintain operational security beyond the attack itself. Ms. Sterling voiced what they were all thinking. If they're willing to die to complete the mission, how do we stop them? Marcus turned to Ryan. What if we turn this around? Instead of waiting for them to attack, we give them what they want. Meaning, we fake Catherine's death. Tonight. Make it public. Convincing. Gerald thinks he's won, calls off his people, and we have time to build a real case. Understanding dawned on Ryan's face. Stage an accident. Car crash. Or single vehicle late at night. Body burned beyond immediate recognition. By the time anyone can verify through dental records, we've tracked down everyone involved and dismantled the whole operation. Ms. Sterling walked to the window. And I disappear. Safe house. Full protection. You run your company remotely while we clean this up. For how long? A week. Maybe 2. She was quiet for a long moment, watching the city wake up below. My son, Oliver. He's with his father in Boston. If I disappear, if they think I'm dead, we tell him the truth. Quietly. Your ex-husband too, just enough so he doesn't grieve. And if Gerald has people watching him, if they see that he's not acting like someone who just lost his mother? Marcus hadn't considered that angle. He looked at Ryan, who was already shaking his head. Too risky. Gerald's smart enough to have surveillance on your family. If Oliver knows you're alive, he might slip. A phone call, a text message, anything that suggests you're still breathing, and the whole operation collapses. So my 12-year-old son has to believe his mother is dead? The pain in her voice was visceral. Marcus thought about Sophie, about how she'd react if someone told her he'd died. The terror, the grief, the sense of abandonment. That was a cruelty no child should endure. There has to be another way. There isn't. Ryan's voice was gentle but firm. If we're going to sell this, everyone has to believe it, including Oliver. Ms. Sterling pressed her forehead against the glass. He already thinks I chose my career over him. This will confirm it. Even after I come back, he'll remember that I let him think I was dead. He'll never forgive me. He'll be alive to hate you. That's what matters. Is it? She turned back to face them. What kind of mother chooses her own survival over her child's emotional well-being? The kind who knows that dead mothers can't rebuild relationships. Marcus kept his voice level. You can't fix things with Oliver if Gerald kills you. This buys you time. The argument hung there while morning light crept across the conference room floor. Finally, Ms. Sterling nodded once. Do it, but I want updates every 6 hours. Everything about Oliver, how he's doing, who's with him, what support he has. I won't leave him alone in this. Ryan started coordinating logistics. The staged crash would happen at 11 p.m. on Route 1, just south of Richmond. They'd need a vehicle matching Catherine's Mercedes, a body from the medical examiner that approximated her build, accelerant to ensure fire damage, and a sympathetic investigator to control the scene. Marcus checked his watch. 16 hours to make it all happen. His phone buzzed. A text from the security team watching Sophie. All quiet. She's sleeping. No unusual activity. That was something, at least. One person he loved was safe. The next 8 hours blurred into a frenzy of preparation. Ryan's team swept the route to the courthouse, finding and removing 3 suspicious packages that turned out to be nothing. Discarded construction materials, a homeless person's belongings, someone's forgotten lunch bag. But they checked everything anyway because missing one device meant people died. Marcus reviewed the building schematics again, looking for angles they'd missed. Something about this whole situation felt wrong, like a note played slightly off-key. Gerald was too smart to rely on a single attack vector. There had to be a backup plan, a contingency that activated when the primary failed. We're missing something. Ryan looked up from coordinating sniper positions. What? I don't know. But Gerald's had 8 months to plan this. He wouldn't put everything on one attack. So what are you suggesting? That we assume there's a second layer, something we haven't seen. They spent another hour gaming scenarios, but nothing concrete emerged. Just the nagging certainty that Gerald Voss was 3 steps ahead of them. At 6 p.m., Ms. Sterling's phone rang. She glanced at the screen and her face went pale. It's Oliver. she answered, putting it on speaker. A young voice trying hard to sound grown up despite obvious fear. Mom? There are men outside Dad's house. They say they're friends of Gerald Voss and they want to talk to you. The world stopped. Marcus was moving before conscious thought caught up, grabbing the phone. Oliver, listen carefully. Are you inside the house right now? Yeah, in my room. Dad's at a conference in Boston. It's just me and Mrs. Patterson, the housekeeper. How many men? 2. They knocked on the door, but Mrs. Patterson wouldn't open it. Then they said to tell Mom that Gerald sends his regards and he's tired of waiting. Oliver, I need you to go to the bathroom, lock yourself in, and stay away from windows. Don't come out for anyone except police or your father. Can you do that? What's happening? Mom, what's going on? Ms. Sterling's voice cracked. Baby, just do what he says, please. Are you in trouble? I'm fine, but I need you safe. Go to the bathroom now. Marcus heard movement through the phone, a door closing, a lock clicking. I'm in, but I'm scared. I know. Stay on the line with us. Your mom's calling the police right now. Ms. Sterling was already dialing 911 on another phone, reporting an attempted home invasion at her ex-husband's address in Boston's Beacon Hill. The dispatcher promised units within 8 minutes. 8 minutes for armed men to kick down a door and take a child. Ryan activated emergency protocols, pulling up every resource they had. Boston PD is rolling, but if those men breach before police arrive, they won't. Marcus kept his voice calm for Oliver's benefit. They're making a point, not committing a felony in broad daylight. This is psychological warfare. But even as he said it, he heard sounds through the phone that made his blood freeze. Breaking glass, shouting, Mrs. Patterson screaming. Oliver's voice, high and terrified. They're inside. I can hear them coming upstairs. Stay in the bathroom. Don't open the door for anyone. They're saying they'll break it down if I don't come out. Ms. Sterling was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as she listened to her son being hunted. A man's voice boomed through Oliver's phone. Boy, we know you're in there. Your mother made some bad choices. This doesn't have to be hard. Open the door and come talk to us. Don't. Marcus kept his voice steady. Oliver, don't open that door. They're kicking it. The lock's breaking. Then the sound of splintering wood, hands grabbing, Oliver screaming, Mom! Mom! Scuffling, the phone hitting the floor, distant voices arguing, then a new voice, older, controlled. Catherine Sterling, this is a courtesy call from Gerald Voss. He wanted you to understand that he's serious about Monday. You testify and your son learns what it's like to lose a parent. Except unlike you, he won't have millions of dollars to cushion the grief. Ms. Sterling's voice came out raw. If you hurt him, we're not going to hurt him. We're just going to keep him somewhere safe until Monday afternoon, after the trial. Then, depending on how things go, we'll decide whether to send him back or make him disappear permanently. Please. He's 12 years old. He has nothing to do with this. He has everything to do with this. He's leverage. And you're going to use that leverage to make the smart choice. Skip Monday's testimony. Tell the prosecutors you've changed your mind. Gerald's lawyers will handle the rest. The trial will proceed without me. My deposition is on record. Depositions can be challenged, dismissed, especially when the witness refuses to appear. You show up Monday and Oliver becomes an orphan. You stay home and he comes back to you safe and sound. Simple choice. The call ended. Ms. Sterling collapsed into a chair, her entire body shaking. Ryan was already coordinating with Boston PD, getting updates, arranging for a full investigation. But everyone in that room knew the truth. Oliver was gone, Gerald had him, and they had less than 36 hours to get him back. Marcus felt the old rage building, the same fury that had consumed him when Brooks died. This was beyond tactics now, beyond strategy. This was pure evil, and it demanded a response that matched its brutality. Where's Gerald right now? Ryan checked monitoring systems. House arrest. Electronic ankle monitor shows him at his estate in Henrico County. Then that's where I'm going. Marcus, you can't. He just kidnapped a child. The rules changed. Ms. Sterling looked up, her face ravaged by tears. If you go to Gerald's house, you'll give him grounds to claim harassment, poison the case against him. I don't care about the case, I care about getting Oliver back alive. And what are you going to do? Beat the location out of him? He'll never tell you, he's too smart for that. Then I'll make him think I'm going to kill him. People talk when they believe their life depends on it. Ryan stepped between Marcus and the door. Stand down. We have protocols for hostage situations. FBI kidnapping response, negotiators, tactical teams. We handle this properly or we risk Oliver's life. Your protocols got us here. Gerald's been playing games with ankle monitors and lawyers while planning multiple murders. I'm done with games. If you assault Gerald, you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Sophie will lose her father. Is that what Brooks would have wanted? The invocation of Brooks's name hit like a physical blow. Marcus stopped, breathing hard, trying to force rational thought through the red haze of fury. Brooks's voice whispered from memory. You can't save everyone, Marcus, but you can save the ones in front of you. Oliver was in front of him now, terrified, alone, held by people who'd already proven they had no limits. Every instinct screamed to act, to move, to do something instead of standing here while a child suffered. But Ryan was right. Charging into Gerald's house would accomplish nothing except his own arrest. Gerald wouldn't keep Oliver at his own residence. Too obvious, too easily searched. The boy would be somewhere else, probably with Lang and Porter moved every few hours to prevent tracking. Marcus forced himself to think tactically. If we can't get to Oliver directly, we get to Gerald indirectly. Find leverage that makes him give the boy up. What kind of leverage? His brother, Robert. Marcus turned to the analyst monitoring surveillance. Where is he right now? Last ping showed him at a restaurant in Henrico, meeting someone. Can you identify who? The analyst pulled up footage from the restaurant's security cameras. Robert Voss sat across from a woman in her 50s, well-dressed, expensive jewelry. They were deep in conversation, papers spread on the table between them. Running facial recognition now. Got her. Victoria Brennan, attorney, specializes in white-collar crime defense. So Robert's coordinating Gerald's legal strategy. Or arranging something else. Look at what they're signing. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but the documents were visible enough to make out a header. Asset transfer agreement. Ryan leaned closer. Gerald's moving money. Probably offshore accounts, shell companies. Getting ready for the possibility he goes to prison. Or preparing to disappear if this whole thing goes wrong. Marcus studied Robert's body language. Nervous. Checking his watch repeatedly, looking toward the door. He's scared. Gerald's dragged him into something way over his head. We could bring him in, offer immunity in exchange for cooperation. No. He'd lawyer up, claim he doesn't know anything, wait for Gerald's people to retrieve Oliver before he talks. Marcus thought for a moment. But we could make him think we're about to arrest him, create enough pressure that he makes a mistake. Ryan understood immediately. A fake raid. Make him panic, see if he runs to wherever they're keeping Oliver. Exactly. They spent the next hour setting it up. Ryan's team positioned vehicles near the restaurant, coordinated with local police to provide cover, prepared to follow Robert the moment he left. The operation would look like a federal task force moving in for an arrest, enough to terrify someone already on edge. At 8:47 p.m., 3 black SUVs pulled up outside the restaurant. 6 agents in FBI raid jackets climbed out, moving with practiced urgency toward the entrance. Robert Voss saw them through the window and went pale. He threw cash on the table, grabbed his briefcase, and bolted for the back exit. The surveillance team followed at a distance, tracking him through side streets as he drove with the panicked intensity of someone who believed his freedom was measured in minutes. He didn't go home. He didn't go to Gerald's estate. He drove straight to an industrial park south of the city, pulling into a warehouse that satellite imagery showed as abandoned. Except the lights were on inside. We've got him! Ryan activated tactical teams positioned around the area. Buildings surrounded, no one's getting out. Marcus was already moving toward the door. I'm coming with you. This is a tactical operation. Civilians stay back. That building probably has Oliver inside. I'm the one who knows what he looks like. You need me. Ryan hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But you stay behind the entry team. No heroics. They drove in convoy to the warehouse, tactical teams deploying in practice silence. Thermal imaging showed 4 heat signatures inside, 3 adults, 1 smaller that could be a child. Robert's car sat in the loading bay, engine still ticking as it cooled. The entry team stacked at the main door. Ryan gave the signal. They breached hard and fast, flashbangs preceding them into the space. Marcus followed in their wake, clearing corners, scanning for threats. The warehouse was mostly empty except for a makeshift living space in one corner. Camping equipment, supplies, a portable generator. And there, tied to a chair, was a boy with dark hair and terrified eyes. Oliver. 2 men stood near him, not Lang or Porter but hired muscle. They tried to run, but tactical teams cut them off, bringing them down with practiced efficiency. Robert Voss was on his knees, hands behind his head, already begging not to be shot. Marcus went straight to Oliver, cutting the zip ties binding his wrists. You're safe, we've got you. The boy was shaking, silent tears running down his face. Where's my mom? She's safe. She sent us to get you. They said she was going to die if she testified. They lied. Your mom's fine and you're going home. Oliver collapsed against him, sobbing. Marcus held the child while tactical teams secured the warehouse, arrested Robert and his accomplices, documented evidence. It felt strange holding someone else's son, but also right. This was what Brooks had meant. You saved the ones in front of you. Ryan appeared beside them. Oliver, I'm Ryan Cole. I work for your mom. We have a car ready to take you somewhere safe. I want to see her. You will, but first we need to make sure you're not hurt. Is that okay? Oliver nodded, allowing himself to be led away by paramedics. Marcus watched him go, relief and exhaustion competing in his chest. That's 2 down. Ryan was checking his tablet. Robert plus his hired help, but Lang and Porter are still out there. Not for long. Robert's going to talk. He's terrified and he just got caught in a felony kidnapping. He'll give up Gerald's entire operation to save himself. Assuming he knows where Lang and Porter are. He knows enough. Family meetings, phone calls, places Gerald mentioned. We put pressure on him and he breaks. The interrogation happened in a secure room downtown. Robert Voss sitting across from FBI agents with his lawyer beside him. But even high-priced legal counsel couldn't hide the terror in Robert's eyes. He'd gone from comfortable attorney to kidnapping accomplice in a single evening, and the weight of it was crushing him. Marcus watched through one-way glass as the interrogation unfolded. Robert claimed he didn't know anything. He was just helping his brother with legal paperwork. The men at the warehouse were security contractors. He had no idea they'd taken a child. Every word was a lie and everyone knew it. The lead agent leaned forward. Robert, here's what we have. You met with Thomas Lang and Angela Porter 3 times in the last week. We have photos. You transferred money to shell companies they control. We have the wire records. You drove straight to a warehouse where a kidnapped child was being held. We have surveillance footage of your entire route. You were just committing felony kidnapping of a minor. That's life in prison, no parole. You'll die in a cell. The agent paused. Unless you cooperate. Robert's lawyer whispered something, but Robert shook him off. What kind of cooperation? Everything. Where Lang and Porter are hiding. What Gerald's planning. Every detail of the operation. You give us that, and we talk to the prosecutor about a deal. Gerald will kill me. Gerald's going to prison for conspiracy to commit murder. He won't be killing anyone. Robert was quiet for a long moment, then, I don't know exactly where they are, but I know they're planning something for tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., when Catherine drives to the courthouse. What kind of something? Gerald didn't tell me specifics, just that it would look like an accident. A tragic coincidence. No one would suspect murder. Marcus felt ice slide down his spine. Despite all their planning, all their sweeps and surveillance, Gerald still had a trap waiting, something they hadn't found. Ryan was already calling the tactical teams. Full lockdown on tomorrow's route. Every building searched, every vehicle checked. We're not taking chances. The interrogation continued for another hour, Robert gradually revealing pieces of Gerald's operation. Shell companies, safe houses, communication protocols, but the most important information came near the end. There's a fail-safe. Gerald built it into the plan. If everything else fails, if Catherine somehow survives, there's one more option. What option? I don't know. He wouldn't tell me, but he said it was guaranteed to work because nobody would see it coming. That was the piece Marcus had been waiting for. The hidden layer, the contingency that activated when all else failed. Gerald had built redundancy into his revenge, and they still hadn't found the final trap. By 3 a.m., they had dismantled most of Gerald's operation. Robert was cooperating fully, giving up contacts and locations. Lang and Porter's last known position was a motel in Chesterfield, but when tactical teams breached the room, it was empty. They'd moved again, aware that the walls were closing in, but the warehouse search had yielded something valuable, a laptop with encrypted files. The FBI's cyber team was working to crack it, promising results within hours. Marcus sat in the conference room, exhausted but unable to sleep. Sophie was safe in the protective apartment. Oliver was reunited with his father, who'd flown back from Boston the moment he heard. Catherine Sterling was in a safe house, preparing for Monday's testimony with the grim determination of someone who'd nearly lost everything. And somewhere out there, Thomas Lang and Angela Porter were preparing their final move. Ryan brought coffee, sitting down heavily across from Marcus. We've got 12 hours until the courthouse run. If they're going to hit us, it'll be then. They know we're ready for them. They have to adapt. Or they abort, cut their losses and run. Gerald won't let them. He's too invested. This is about revenge, not money. He'll push them to try anyway. The laptop decryption finished at 5:30 a.m. The files revealed detailed surveillance logs, photos of Catherine's daily routine, vehicle specifications, route analysis. Everything needed to plan an assassination, and buried in the communications folder, an email from 3 days ago. Primary and secondary plans both compromised. Activate tertiary protocol. Target will be at courthouse 8 a.m. Monday. Ensure completion regardless of security presence. Payment doubles upon confirmation. GV. Tertiary protocol. The fail-safe Robert had mentioned. Marcus studied the email, looking for clues about what that protocol might entail. The wording was careful, revealing nothing specific, but the emphasis on regardless of security presence suggested something that couldn't be stopped by guards or guns. What's at the courthouse that we haven't checked? Ryan pulled up building schematics. We've swept the courtroom, the approaches, the parking structure. K9 units cleared everything yesterday. Check again, and this time look for things that aren't bombs. Like what? I don't know. But Gerald's smart enough to know we'd search for explosives. He'd use something different, something we wouldn't think to look for. The search teams went through the courthouse again, this time with expanded parameters. They checked HVAC systems for poison gas, electrical systems for potential fires, structural supports for sabotage, water lines for contaminants. Nothing. At 7 a.m., Marcus stood in the courthouse parking garage, watching the sun rise over Richmond. In 1 hour, Catherine Sterling would arrive for her testimony. Every possible threat had been checked, cleared, and secured. Sniper teams were in position. Tactical units were ready. The route was locked down, and he still felt like they were missing something. His phone rang. Sophie. Ba? When are you coming to get me? Soon, baby girl, just have to finish something first. You said that yesterday. I know, I'm sorry. But this is important. People's lives depend on it. People always depend on it. When do I get to depend on you? The question cut deep because it was fair. He'd been choosing strangers over his daughter since the moment he'd stopped to help Catherine. Every hour he spent hunting Gerald's team was an hour he wasn't spending with Sophie. You're right. When this is done, I'm taking a week off. Just you and me. Whatever you want to do. Real promise? Real promise. She was quiet for a moment. Okay. But Ba, be careful. I had a bad dream about you. What kind of dream? You were helping someone and you got hurt, and I couldn't reach you. Marcus felt his throat tighten. It was just a dream. I'm going to be fine. You promise? I promise. The call ended. Marcus stood there in the empty garage, wondering if that was another promise he'd have to break. At 7:45, Catherine Sterling's car entered the parking garage. Marcus watched her park, watched her step out wearing the body armor they'd insisted on under her suit jacket. She looked composed, ready, every inch the executive who'd built an empire from nothing. You don't have to do this. Marcus approached her. We can still use a decoy. We've been over this. Gerald will know. Maybe, but you'll be alive. She smiled without humor. My son was kidnapped yesterday because of me, because I built a company that made Gerald rich, then took it away when he stole from me. Oliver spent 6 hours terrified because of choices I made. That's not your fault, isn't it? I trusted the wrong person. I missed the warning signs. I built something so valuable that people will kill for it. Those were my choices. She straightened her jacket. Now I make a different choice. I face the man who tried to destroy me, and I tell the truth. Whatever happens after that, at least I'll know I didn't hide. Marcus understood. This wasn't about tactical advantage anymore. This was about Catherine Sterling reclaiming her agency, refusing to let fear dictate her actions. It was brave and stupid in equal measure, but he respected it. Then let's make sure you survive it. They rode the elevator to the 3rd floor where the courtroom waited. Security was overwhelming. Metal detectors, armed marshals, plainclothes agents positioned throughout the building. Ryan's team had created layers of protection so deep that an army couldn't penetrate them. But Marcus kept thinking about Gerald's tertiary protocol, something that would work regardless of security presence. The courtroom filled with lawyers, prosecutors, journalists. Gerald Voss sat at the defense table looking smaller than his photographs suggested. House arrest had aged him, carved hollows in his face and shoulders. But his eyes were sharp, focused, tracking Catherine as she took the witness stand. Their gazes locked across the room. Catherine didn't flinch. The prosecution began their questioning, walking Catherine through her discovery of the embezzlement, the investigation, the evidence. She answered clearly, precisely, demolishing Gerald's defense point by point. Marcus watched Gerald for reactions, looking for the moment when he'd signal his people to act. But Gerald just sat there, occasionally whispering to his lawyers, his expression neutral. 2 hours into the testimony, nothing had happened. No attacks, no threats, no disruptions. Catherine was methodically destroying Gerald's case, and he seemed content to let it happen. That was wrong. Something was very wrong. Marcus pulled Ryan aside. He's too calm. Maybe he knows it's over. We arrested his people, disrupted his plans. He's got nothing left. Or he knows something we don't. Ryan's phone buzzed. He checked it and his face went pale. Lang and Porter just entered the building, through the underground maintenance access. How? We sealed those entrances. They had credentials, maintenance worker badges, work orders. They walked right past security. Marcus was already moving toward the courtroom exit. Where are they now? Lost them on camera. Could be anywhere in the building. Evacuate. Now. Ryan started issuing orders, but Marcus kept running. Lang and Porter were professionals. They wouldn't attack the courtroom directly. Too much security, too many variables. They'd target Catherine when she left, in the corridors or parking garage. Unless the tertiary protocol was something different entirely. Marcus reached the courthouse basement, checking every room, every closet. The maintenance access tunnels branched in multiple directions, old infrastructure from when the building was constructed in the 1970s. He found the device in a utility room near the main electrical panel. It wasn't a bomb. It was a laptop connected to the building's fire suppression system, running code that Marcus recognized from his military days. A remote override, designed to trigger all sprinklers simultaneously while also activating the emergency lockdown protocols. The building would flood, doors would seal, elevators would shut down, and in the chaos with everyone trapped and panicking, Lang and Porter would have their window to strike. Marcus ripped the laptop free, severing the connection. But as he did, he heard footsteps behind him. Thomas Lang stood in the doorway, gun leveled. "Should have stayed in your garage, mechanic. It's over, Lang. We have Robert. We have your accomplices. Gerald's going to prison." "Maybe. But I still get paid if Catherine Sterling dies today." He cocked the hammer. "And you're in my way." Marcus dove sideways as the shot went off, the bullet sparking off pipes above his head. He rolled behind a support column, trapped in a room with no other exits. Lang advanced carefully, professional, clearing angles. "You're good. I'll give you that. Found our devices, tracked our movements, but you made one mistake." "What's that?" "You assumed we needed explosives to kill someone." Another shot, closer this time. Sometimes the simplest methods work best. Marcus looked around for anything he could use as a weapon. A wrench, a length of pipe. Nothing within reach without exposing himself to Lang's gun. Then he heard it. Footsteps on the stairs, multiple people. Ryan's voice echoed down. "Lang, FBI, drop your weapon!" Lang hesitated for just a moment, calculating odds. Then he fired twice toward the stairs and ran for a different exit, disappearing into the tunnels. Ryan's team flooded the room, securing Marcus, checking for injuries. "You hit?" "No, but Lang got away." "Not far. We've got the whole building locked down." Ryan examined the laptop Marcus had disconnected. "Is this what I think it is?" "Fire suppression override. They were going to flood the building, create chaos, use it as cover." "Clever. And we wouldn't have found it without you." Marcus stood, brushing off concrete dust. "Where's Catherine?" "Safe. We evacuated her the moment we knew Lang was inside." "And Porter?" "Still searching." They found Angela Porter 15 minutes later, trying to exit through a loading dock. She didn't resist arrest, just smiled coldly as they cuffed her. "Gerald's going to walk. You know that, right? His lawyers will tear apart your case, say we acted independently, that he had nothing to do with it. Robert's already testified against him, gave us everything. Robert's a coward. He'll recant once Gerald's lawyers get to him." "Maybe." Ryan walked her toward the waiting police car. "But we've got enough to make sure you and Lang spend the next 20 years in federal prison. And that's something." The trial concluded 3 hours later. Gerald Voss was found guilty on 8 counts of embezzlement, 2 counts of conspiracy to commit murder, and 1 count of witness intimidation. The judge sentenced him to 25 years without parole. Gerald showed no emotion as marshals led him away, but as he passed Catherine Sterling in the corridor, he leaned close and whispered something only she could hear. Later, when Marcus asked what Gerald had said, Catherine's answer was simple: that he'd do it all again, that revenge was worth any price. Marcus drove to the safe house to collect Sophie, exhaustion finally catching up with him. She ran out when she saw his truck, launching herself into his arms. "You came back. I promised, didn't I? Real promise. Real promise." They drove home together, Sophie chattering about the books she'd read, the games she'd played, how the guards had let her order pizza. Marcus listened, grateful for the mundane normalcy of a child's concerns. Their house looked exactly as they'd left it, but somehow different. Marcus saw it now as Gerald's people must have seen it. Vulnerable, exposed, easy to threaten. He'd have to move them somewhere safer, somewhere that didn't have so many ghosts. 2 weeks later, Catherine Sterling came to his garage. She drove herself this time. No security detail, no armor. Just a woman in a business suit holding a folder. I have a proposition. Marcus set down his wrench. I'm listening. Sterling Defense needs a security consultant, someone who thinks like the people trying to hurt us, someone who can find threats before they materialize. I'm a mechanic. You're a tactician who happens to fix cars. There's a difference. She handed him the folder. 2 days a week, $20,000 a month. You'd train my security team, review our protocols, help us stay ahead of people like Gerald. Marcus opened the folder. The contract was straightforward, professional, generous. Why me? Because you saved my life. Because you found things my entire security apparatus missed. Because you understand that the most dangerous threats are the ones that look ordinary until it's too late. She paused. And because I trust you. Trust. The word carried weight after everything they'd been through. Marcus thought about Sophie, about the promises he kept breaking, about the life he'd tried to build away from tactical operations and threat assessment. But he also thought about Brooks, about the lesson his death had taught. You can't save everyone, but you can save the ones in front of you. I'll do it, but I need Fridays off. That's my day with Sophie, non-negotiable. Done. They shook hands, and Marcus felt something shift. Not closure exactly, but maybe the beginning of something new, a way to use the skills he'd tried to bury but for protection instead of war. That evening, he taught Sophie to ride her bike without training wheels. She wobbled, steadied, found her balance. When she finally rode a full block without falling, her laugh was pure joy. Marcus watched her circle back toward him, the setting sun painting everything gold, and thought about all the promises he'd kept and broken, about the people he'd saved and the ones he'd lost, about the mechanic who'd stopped to help a stranger and found himself hunting killers. Sophie skidded to a stop beside him, breathless and grinning. Did you see, Ba? I did it. I saw. I'm proud of you. Can we do this every week, just us? Every Friday, real promise. Real promise? Real promise. She rode off again, wheels spinning, and Marcus stood there watching her disappear into the dusk. The past would always be there. Brooks' ghost, Gerald's threats, the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. But the future was something else, something that could be built one promise at a time, one day at a time, one decision at a time. He was done running from what he'd been. Now he'd use it to protect what mattered, and that finally felt like enough.